Middleweight, $160. That's where we're at. Boxing's biggest names, boxing's biggest stories, boxing's biggest fights, greatest memories and moments. We harvest, cover it like a blanket, all of it. And we do it with boxing author, writer, CompuBox counter, historian, my good buddy Lee Groves. How you doing, Lee?
Good. How about you?
Good. But yeah, everybody used, and I'm so tired of all the broadcasters. I'm already bitching, and we're not even 3 minutes into the show. Using the word stacked. We got a stacked card. Stacked. Ugh. Anyway, we're actually stacked. But since I don't like that, I'm going to say we're jam-packed with pugilistic stuff. We've got some, let's see, we've got reviews, we've got previews, we've got Hall of Fame preview. It's coming up next week. I'll be in boxing's title town hosting the festivities of the International Boxing Hall of Fame 2025. We have a very special guest who is a Hall of Famer and perhaps on the shortest of short list of the greatest Aussie fighters of all time, the Merrickville Mauler. Jeff Fenech joins us, and in keeping with that spirit of Aussie greats, you'll have your top, what is it? You got your top five?
Five.
Top five Aussie fighters of all time. I bet Fenech's on that list. But without further ado, tell us, give us some reviews and previews.
Well, last Saturday was a very busy day in boxing. In Japan, there were two world title fights. The first was an immediate rematch between Pedro Tataran and Genjiro Shigeoka for the IBF minimum weight title. 10 months earlier, Tataran stopped Shigeoka to win the belt, and here he retained it by split decision. But the big story was what happened after the fight when Shigeoka collapsed and was taken out of the arena on a stretcher. Reports indicate that he has undergone brain surgery, and the commission has ordered Shigeoka to retire immediately. I think that's very obvious. In the main event, Angelo Leo retained his IBF featherweight title for the first time by beating one-time WBO bantamweight champion Tomoki Kameda by majority decision. So the road fighters were 2 for 2. And then later in the day, the scene shifted to Scotland, and it was there that the weekend's biggest upset occurred as Eko Usman scored a well-received unanimous decision over former undisputed 140-pound champion Josh Taylor. It was a tale of two fights. Taylor did best in the first 6, while Usman controlled the final 6. This result marks Taylor's third consecutive loss, and many are wondering what's next, if anything, for the Tartan Tornado. I watched the fight live and thought this was a case of good Usman rather than bad Taylor, but one still has to ask, where does Taylor go from here? If he chooses to continue, it'll probably have to be a long rebuild. We'll see what he does down the road. The co-main event saw 20-year-old heavyweight sensation Moses Atama move his record to 12-0 with 10 knockouts after scoring a highlight reel second-round TKO over 41-year-old Mike Balogun. WBO President Gustavo Olivieri said after the fight that Atama is now the organization's #1 contender. So he's now in position, at least theoretically, to challenge the winner of next month's undisputed heavyweight title fight between Alexander Usyk and Daniel Dubois. And now we move on to the previews. Tonight's Amazon Prime show, and I think you're going to be there, Smitty, involves Caleb Plant and Jermall Charlo in separate fights. Now, the two made headlines a couple of years ago when they got into a scuffle at the backstage area of T-Mobile on the night of Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence. Plant will defend his secondary WBA super middleweight title belt against one-time sparring partner Jose Armando Resendiz, while Charlo will face Thomas LaManna in a scheduled 10-rounder. My picks, Plant and Charlo by TKO. Now we move on to the Hall of Fame preview, which we will
whoa, slow down. I told you to go fast, but you're just, man, oh man, you're on fire here. Yes, so and the ultimate thing with the Charlo Plant thing is to have those two win and fight each other. That's what they're looking to do, correct?
That's the intended storyline.
Right. That's what I thought. All right. Now, a proper segue. June 5th through the 8th, and boxing's title town is the International Boxing Hall of Fame 2025. Once again, I'll be serving as the hostess with the mostest, as DK, Don King, would probably introduce me as. So now, set it up.
Well, we aren't going to be on next week for a very good reason, and that is both of us are going to be in Canastota for this year's International Boxing Hall of Fame induction weekend. You will host it, I will attend it, and I
No,
also.
hey! You're not getting out of your. You've got to fill in for me on Saturday at late in the day. So you've got an assignment. So don't think you're going to wiggle out of that.
Well, yeah, I have an assignment. For the second straight year, I'm going to be doing the final ringside lecture on Saturday. And I am told that I will be interviewing Mickey and Dickie, Dick Eklund and Mickey Ward. We've had Mickey on our show a couple of times for our St. Patrick's Day show. So it should be a fun conversation. So, as far as the class that's going to be inducted, the modern male inductees are Michael Nunn, Vinny Paz, and Manny Pacquiao. And Pacquiao's situation is unique in that he is scheduled to fight WBC welterweight champion Mario Barrios July 19th in Las Vegas, yet he is still going to be inducted. Why is that? Here's what I think. Pacquiao's induction represents just the culmination of the vote that happened last October and was announced last December. And back then, Pacquiao didn't have anything scheduled.
Right.
Is he gaming the system? To a degree, perhaps he is, but strictly speaking, this is legal. Your thoughts on the situation?
Well, we know you know my thoughts. We spoke about it, a few weeks ago. I'm totally against Manny fighting. Interestingly enough, Jeff Fenech, who will be on with us, did the same thing, but he waited 12 years or something like that
Yeah.
for that final fight with Azuma Nelson. But it's just this Hall of Fame should be for all the fighters, the culmination, celebrating their great legacies, and their exhibitions are one thing, but Manny's, you know what I have to say. We already went over it at length.
We did. And of course, the female modern inductees will be Mary Jo Sanders, Jessica Chavez, and Ann Sophie Mathis, while Kathy Cat Davis will be honored as the Trailblazer. Owen Swift is this year's Pioneer inductee, while former two-time middleweight champion Rodrigo Valdez was the choice in the Old Timer category. The non-participants for this year are Cutman Al Gavin, referee Harry Gibbs, and another referee, judge also Harry Gibbs, and referee Kenny Bayless, who was on our show a couple of years ago. And finally, this year's Observer inductees are TV producer Gross Greenberg and Randy Gordon, our friend. Given all these names, we're expecting a really big turnout this year.
Yeah.
How do you think this is going to go?
I think it's going to be a great year. Paz has his East Coasters and Paz maniacs, you could call them.
Yeah.
And Manny Pacquiao, I'm sure half the Philippines will be there for Manny. So I think that'll be great. And then the others you mentioned, Randy Gordon, he tried calling me. I missed his call earlier today. He's over the moon, excited. Ross Greenberg, we'll make sure we get Ross on the program following the Hall of Fame. Did some great work with those documentaries with HBO, and I watched that. What's the Ali thing called? One Nation Divisible. Yeah, that was great. He did that, and so many others. Was he the one that did the Legendary Night series as well?
I think he did, and he's also done some really good stuff for the Golf Channel. Really enjoyed those. He's really good at what he does, and he's a Hall of Famer. He deserves it.
But when you've got Pac and Paz, you've got pizzazz. So it's going to be a great week, and I look forward to it. Speaking of Halls of Famers, our special guest from Down Under, Jeff Fenech, up next.
on what I done best, and that was cutting the ring off. And I don't believe anybody in the world cut the ring off. Anybody, ever. And I don't care, Chavez, Duran. I think I was the best at cutting the ring off. Just watch my fights and you'll see. And I'd let you go, say, you're moving, but you're moving. You go, you're moving. Yeah, right, and I'd go. And then I'd make sure I'd either cut that off for that, and straight away I'd be ready if he went that way. But so what I'd do is I'd go there. So you
Bring
know,
him in with
well, you already know that, but you already know that's not going, so you can't go that way. So I'm there, and then I'm ready for that. Yeah. For instance, if I miss you, Smithy, now I'm in a good. That's fine, but I'm in a position. So if your best punch, if you're going to try to hook me, well, that's nothing. But you won't do. But if you go to hook me, head, I can roll. I'm there to punch it. But even if I miss you now, I'm in now position to second punch, third punch, and also to get away from there.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's all about your feet and where you land after that first punch.
Being in position after the punch.
100%, because listen.
But that's about balance too.
Yeah, 100%, but 80% of the time, we don't want to get hit, so that punch may miss. So being in position for that second and third punch.
Back on in this corner of the podcast, Buck 60, and you just saw some video of that Hall of Famer there beating me up a little bit. I think that was done about a decade ago here in town at the Fight Club when we did our in-ring demonstration with Hall of Famer, and he is on the shortest of all short list of the greatest fighters in the history of Australia. He is former world champion, 3 weight divisions. Jeff Fenech. I knew he was going to say 4. I knew he was going to do that. Jeff Fenech, how you doing, mate? How are you?
Yeah, really good, Smitty, really good. I just been busy, had a few health problems, had a few heart problems, but apart from that, no, I'm happy as hell.
I want to get that out of the way because I was worried about you, your fans, your friends, your family. Tell us what went wrong and where everything is at now in terms of your health.
Well, about 5 years ago, I was in Bangkok. I wasn't feeling well, and each day I felt worse. There was one afternoon, the boys trained. I went to watch my boys train. I walked to the room, and usually I have dinner with them. I said, I'm not going to have dinner tonight. I just want to go and rest. And one of the boys seen that I was really sick, so he went downstairs and told the reception that he was in my room and lost his key. They gave him a key. He brought the ambulance there. Had the ambulance not come and I fell asleep, I wouldn't be here today. So a couple of my friends saved my life that day. Then a few years later, here in Sydney, Australia, I had a temperature and stuff like that, and they were telling me just to take Panadol and stuff. And a couple of days later, again, I was rushed to hospital, had emergency surgery, and was lucky not to pass away again.
Well, you know what? Inside the ring, you were about as tough as it gets. This aging shit's not fun. I don't like this aging stuff. I didn't plan. I don't know if Fenech and Smitty, if we planned for our 60s, you know?
Yeah, well, I turned 61 yesterday.
I know it.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday to you. Talk. Lee's put together some great questions, so I'll flip it to Lee.
Thanks for being on the show, by the way. One of the most amazing aspects of your career to me is that while you're one of history's greatest volume punchers, you did so despite being born with protruding knuckles that prevented you from making a proper fist. That's like trying to win the Indy 500 inside a car with square wheels. I mean, it's just very, very difficult what you had to deal with. Could you describe the difficulties you experienced because of your hands? How did you cope with it during training, during fights? It had to be excruciating.
Yeah, I'm happy you said that because people don't realise, if a runner's got a torn hammy, he's not going to win the race. I had broken hands 90% of my fights. They were broken before I fought. My hands after every fight, I couldn't even take the gloves off. They were that big. But like I said, I don't know. I had that willpower and I had that mental capacity to say that I'm going to do this. And listen, just another thing for you, Lee. I mean, now that the WBC has given me my 4th world title, that was in 6 years. Floyd Mayweather took 10 to win 4 world titles. I was the first boxer in history to be 3-time world champion undefeated. But because I'm from Australia, I don't think I get the credit and I don't get the recognition. But like I said, I know what I done, and I know I done it under the toughest circumstances. I mean, I think we watched the fights a couple of weeks ago, and in the main event, the 2 guys between them threw 200 and something punches. I done that per round.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure you did. Um, you've also one thing that people may not know, you were an Olympian. You fought in the 1984 Olympics. You were favored to win at least a medal, if not the gold medal, and you advanced to the quarterfinal. And while you were originally announced as a 3-2 winner against Yugoslavia's Redzepkovski, a five-man jury overturned the verdict and gave the bout to Redzepkovski. How painful was it for you in the moment, and is it still painful to you now?
No, no, life goes on. I live every day. Hey, I don't care about yesterday. I don't care about that tomorrow. I just live every day. But the thing again that nobody knows, I had 24 amateur fights. I was fighting guys at 300, 200, and yeah, I really won a bronze medal. And then the person who I beat went on to fight Steve McCrory, who's a great fighter for the Olympic gold medal. And look, the great thing was, Lee, that a year or so later, I was able to fight Stephen McCrory as a professional, and I knocked him out in the 14th round, which was, the fight was called Olympic Revenge. But like I said, who knows if I would have won the gold medal? But I did. I had guaranteed myself a bronze medal that hadn't been done for a long time in Australian boxing history.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah, and
mm-hmm.
you sure, I was watching a documentary on the Eagles and life in the fast lane, and you sure were in the fast lane. Not a whole lot of amateur fights. Seventh fight, you win a world title. 3.5 years later, you have like three different weight division titles. As I know, Lee's going to take us into the your professional career here.
Yeah, you turned pro and you won your first six fights, and then you were offered the opportunity to fight IBF Bantamweight champion Satoshi Sengaki. This was just 196 days after your pro debut. What did you think when the fight was first presented to you?
I was a cocky guy, and my trainer, yeah, great Johnny Lewis, he told me that, you know, if you want to win this, you can win it. And one of the great things that I'll never forget was all the ex-Australian world champions and champions are saying, how's this guy? He hasn't gone over 6 rounds. How's he going to fight 15 rounds? They didn't realise that I sparred 15 rounds against five different opponents on 100 occasions. Because nobody could do over 3 rounds with me. So I was ready. I was mentally ready. Look, I knew it was going to be a tough battle, which it was. But you don't realise again, Lee, after look, have a look in my first 20 fights. I think 13 or 14 of them, 13 were for world titles.
Hmm. The story that I heard was that you were surprised that you were being offered a world title shot so quickly. And once you and your team looked at a tape of Shingaki, you said, we'll go for it. Is that true?
Oh, 100%. But listen, if they showed me a video of Roberto Duran, who I love, I would have said yes to him as well.
Okay.
I believed in myself. I tell everybody's heart's the same size. It's this that makes everything operate. If you know you've worked hard, you know you've done something, you're capable of doing it. And I honestly believed in myself. And like I said, go through some of the fighters I fought. Jerome Coffey was 26-0 when I fought him. I was not even 2 years a pro. 15. I fought 4 or 5 fights, 15 rounds. One went 15 rounds, one went 14 rounds, 9 rounds, three. So for me, I kind of believe that I was old school. And yeah. And then you've got to realise, Lee, like you said earlier, every time I fought, like I said, prior to my fight, I had to get injections. My hands were balloons. And yeah, I was in a lot of pain. When I would punch somebody in the head or on the elbow during the fight, it hurt me more than it hurt them.
Very much so. And that really speaks to your pain tolerance and your determination. For those of us who will never experience the thrill of becoming a world champion, describe it to us.
It's when people ask me, it's the hardest thing for me to say because I never boxed. I never ever had this dream of becoming a world champion. I wanted to be a football player. I played football all my life, and then I'm 17 and a half. I go to a PCYC, Police Citizens Youth Club, and I meet this man who lets me box one day and tells me I've got all this potential. I didn't even believe him because that day, Lee, I got beat up by this other boxer, and I think this guy's lying to me. And I wasn't going to go back, but I went back the next day, and it was everything happened so quick. I came third in the world in 1983 in Rome after 11 fights. You know,
Incredible, incredible. You mentioned the Steve McCrory fight, and as you mentioned, he won the gold medal in the 1984 Olympics. That you probably could have won had things turned out differently. Was there a grudge between the two of you?
I don't know about a grudge, but I was definitely not. He came out singing. He's going to take me to school. He's going to teach me a lesson. I listen. I had 15, 20,000 every one of my fights. I never had to talk, Lee. I let my fist do the talking. When you use, I'm like again. I'm old school. I didn't have to say anything about my opponent, but he had a lot to say about me. The same as Jerome Coffey. They had a lot to say about me. And the other thing, Lee, this right. This is something that I'd love you just to have a little look at one day. You look at all these fights where people defend their titles, and I fought, like I said, I fought some great fighters. Daniel Zaragoza, Marcus
Yes.
Villasana was world champion, Greg Richardson, who was world champion, and they didn't win a round against me. It
Yeah.
wasn't like it was 118, 116. I beat those guys 120 to 180 every fight. These guys
Yeah.
barely won a round against me. So I know what I've done. So when people talk about me or try to say things, I don't really care what they say because I know what I've done, and nobody will ever be able to do what I've done with their hands and yeah,
Yeah.
in the time that I done it in, nobody will ever do that. Although boxing's changed, it's a little you can do things, but when I was fighting, it was the hardest era, and like I said, I fought Carlos Zarate, Daniel Zaragoza, Marcus Villasana, all the great Mexicans, Mario Martinez, and yeah, they barely won a round against me.
Yes, indeed. And then you moved up to 122 and you fought Samar Piakarun. And in
Yeah.
round one, he scored a flash knockdown. And I think
No,
that
no,
was the
no,
first
no.
he
That
did.
that wasn't that was the wrong fight. But he hit me. That was the. Oh yeah, Packaroon. Yes, it was. Yeah, you're right.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. It
Yeah.
wasn't a knockdown. I slipped.
Yeah,
But
it was a
yeah,
flash.
yeah. No, that I never felt anything. That wasn't. Yeah. I think I was off balance. My feet were in the air. Yeah, and yeah. Referee asked me, can he put a count on me, which I wasn't happy about. But no, that's the ref. It's his choice.
And then you proceeded to dominate the fight and you knocked him out in round four. And I think you knocked him unconscious. It was just a flurry of blows. He fell against the ropes. Everybody was cheering. What do you recall about that moment of you coming back from a fake knockdown
Anyway,
and then
but
just dominating?
what I want to say is, well, just so again, people haven't followed my career because I'm from Australia. Samar Pakaroon knocked out Lupi Pinto and Juan Meza, two great Mexicans.
Yeah.
Lupi Pinto had the title and defended it 9 times, and Samar Pakaroon knocked him out.
Yeah. Samar Piakarun was no joke. He was a real slick boxing. He was a talented fighter, and you dominated him, which speaks a lot for you. You are a man who appreciates history. And two fights later, you stood across the ring from the legendary Carlos Zarate, who went into the match with a record of 66-2 with 63 knockouts, thanks to a 12-fight winning streak he assembled after coming back from a 7-year retirement. What do you recall about the buildup? What do you recall about the fight? And what do you recall about the experience of facing a guy like Carlos Zarate?
Uh, it was amazing. I mean, of course, that was the most, maybe, yeah, I was most nervous I've ever been. And like I said, if you're not nervous, you can't be ready. But I knew about his punching power, and when he made the comeback, he'd just beaten the number one rated person in the world, and he'd knocked all of these guys out against them. Yeah, I was a little worried, but like I said to I was one of these guys who had amazing self belief, and I always had the most amazing preparation. I believe preparation's everything. And like I tell people that preparation's not the 2 hours that we train a day. It's the other 22 hours that you're on your own and what you do in those 22 hours. And mine were rest, sleep, eat properly because I had to make weight. And
Mhm.
yeah, as nervous as I was very, very ready. And like I said, I was thinking, should I change? Should I try to box? I said, no, I'm just going to jump on this guy the same as I do everybody else. And yeah,
Yeah,
I wanted him. I wanted him to fight my fight.
yeah, but before Lee continues, he's got about 4 or 5 more questions. One, we had Joe Calzaghe on recently, and you guys obviously are different type of fighters, but two characteristics I just thought of on the spot here that you and Joe had tremendous self confidence, self belief, and you both had tremendous motors, gas tanks, Where did your self-confidence come
When,
from
yeah.
and also your endurance? I believe that I know you trained hard, but I think when you've got a motor like you and Calzaghe, a lot of that is God-given, I think. But go ahead, you can answer.
Right? Just being he's God given, but the work, like I would run 10 kilometers in 30 and a half minutes. So I'd do 3 minute Ks every day. 7 days a week I ran. I trained twice a day, every day. But like I said, Smitty, the thing that I done was after training, before I trained, I rested, I done everything. All I did, I lived the box. I lived to be, you know, who I am today. I just wanted to be a fighter. And I mean, yeah, Joe
So
Calzaghe was
you
a
never
great
did what
fighter.
Smitty you never did what Smitty did? You never went out and had a jar or two? Come on.
No, I didn't. I made up for it these days.
Yeah, yeah, really. Go ahead, Lee.
Well, you earned it. Two fights after you fought Zarate, you faced Victor Callejas for the vacant WBC featherweight title. Callejas was known for his vicious uppercuts, and he hit you with one early on.
Yeah.
Did it register with you? Did you feel his power?
It unregistered me. My hands just dropped, and I was standing up, knocked out. I didn't even my hands just dropped in front of me, and I don't know. It's like somebody shot me, and I think that what he done, Lee, was he thought, "Wow, I've hit him. I'm going to knock him out now."
Mm.
Thank God for my fitness and my motor and the work that I put in. Within a few seconds, I'd recovered, hands back up, and like I said again, I won every round. I knocked him out in the 10th round, and I mean, knocking him out, I had one hand. If you watch the fight closely, you'll see that I don't use my right hand for nearly the whole fight because it it was bigger than the glove.
Wow. Wow. Uh, was that the hardest you ever been hit, that uppercut?
Yeah, without doubt.
And who did you hit the hardest?
I think maybe Sabah Pakaroon.
Okay,
No,
fair
Smitty.
enough.
Smitty about 10 years ago.
You wouldn't be here, Smitty, today if I hit you.
Yeah, I know. I tried to run like a bandit, but you did too damn good of a job of cutting off that ring. With some of the other greats, I could escape. I couldn't escape you. I couldn't find nowhere to retreat. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Lee.
You dominated the fight with Callejas and you won your third world championship. And while winning three divisional titles is commonplace today, you were the 12th man, only the 12th to win widely recognized titles in three weight classes. How special is that achievement for you?
Yeah, it was amazing, and I was the first person to ever do it undefeated.
Yeah.
Ray Leonard and Tommy that lost, but yeah. So look, yeah, obviously it makes you feel great, and that person after that fight that felt great. I don't even like him anymore. I don't like that person that thought he was this great. Yeah, and everything. I don't like him. If I could change anything, which I can't change in my life, I'd love to change the way fame and fortune changed me. And I really say that because yeah, I don't like that three-time world champion cocky bastard. I like
Mhm.
the person I am today that wants to help people and give back to the people. Like I tell people, I own a beautiful house. If it wasn't for the people who paid to watch me, I wouldn't have it. So I owe the people, and that's who I want to be. I want my legacy to be about what I'm doing after boxing, and I'm sure it's going to be very, very special. Some of the things I've got in the pipeline, helping people and doing things for kids.
Hmm. We've always spoke about your courage, training, fighting through pain. But I think one of the greatest demonstrations of courage that I've seen, and I've watched boxing for 51 years, one of the greatest demonstrations of courage was your fight with Marcos Villasana in April 1989. In that fight, it was reported that you broke both hands, you suffered a broken nose, you had a broken cheekbone, and yet you won a wide unanimous decision. One, how are you able to manage the pain? And then how were you able to manage Villasana, who was a pretty rough character?
Yeah, Marcus Villasana was mostly, I think, had the best chin in boxing. I
Hmm.
mean, yeah, like, I hit him so many times. Like I said, my both hands. We had to cut the gloves off my hands. My hands were so swollen, and yeah, I didn't. Yeah. Apart from that, everything else is just a part and parcel of the game. But like I said, when you've got when the tools you've got to use to build or the tools you've got to use to win are broken, it was tough. But like I said, and like I believe that in one of the fights that I watched him against Zuma Nelson that he won. I believe that when he fought the WBA world champion, he lost 3 points for low blows and he lost on a split decision. So Villasano was a truly, truly great fighter.
He was, and I think the fight you were talking about was Antonio Esparagosa.
That's
He
correct.
lost all those points, and it was a draw, I guess.
And Lee, what does he do? I think he fights again, and then he goes into another sport. Take us into that.
Yeah, after beating Mario Martinez, you retired from the ring and you played high level rugby with the Parramatta Eels, one of the most historically successful teams in rugby league. Describe that time and what persuaded you to return to boxing. I know you had to put on a lot of weight to play rugby. How much weight did you have to put on?
It wasn't about putting on weight, but I did put on weight because I retired, and I didn't retire. I told everybody back then it was my broken hands, but my promoter and my manager were all fighting around me every day about this and about that. So that was for me, and I never usually take an easy way out, but I took the easy way out that day, and I said, "Listen, this is my opportunity to go and play rugby league." When I played, I went from 58, 59 kilos to about 79. So it was okay. I enjoyed it.
Okay. So what was it like to engage with these high level professionals? You're a Hall of Fame boxer, but you had the athleticism to transition to a completely different sport. What was that transition like?
No, I loved it because that's all I wanted to do. If I can give all my belts back today and play first grade rugby league for Parramatta or Newtown, I'd give them all back.
Oh, tremendous. And then what persuaded you to come back?
I was at a fight. I was watching Jeff Harding versus Dennis Andrees, sitting there with Mike Tyson, Donald Trump, and Don King. And when I seen him win that world title, I said, "Oh, I've got to get back in and do what I do best."
Yeah, Jeff Harding was he lived up to his name, and he lived up to his name in that fight. He had to come from behind, and he scored the knockout and won the championship. He really put on a show that day. In your second fight back, you challenged WBC super featherweight champion Azuma Nelson, and while most observers believed you deserved to win, the official result was a draw. We saw all the anger and the disbelief all over your face when the decision was announced. Describe what you felt at that moment, knowing that you were denied your rightful world title.
I was ringside for that fight in Vegas, and it was definitely a bad decision. But I'll let Jeff.
Horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, it went. I thought back to the Olympics. Here I go. I'm doing the sport that I love, and I'm right. But listen, I say this. I don't care who's listening, what judge or these guys. They're influenced by promoters. The promoter's the guy who puts them there. That put them in a hotel room, send them a girl while before they have dinner, pay them for their dinners. Listen, if Azuma Nelson or anybody else thinks that I didn't win that fight, they've never watched the fight. The commentator that day he said I won by 7 points. So, I mean, you can't be that far wrong. And like I said, I've watched it a million times, and I love Azuma. I think he's one of the greatest fighters in history. But on that day, he certainly didn't beat me. And listen, I've heard all these excuses. He had malaria. If the doctor let him fight with the malaria, or his corner let him fight with malaria, they should never be allowed to be in the corner again.
Yeah.
And you know of where you speak because later on in your career, you were a trainer and you had to make decisions like that.
Yeah, like I said, I love the sport so much. I honestly believe that if I trained some of these guys out of America, I'd be a better trainer than I was a fighter. We got a limited few here in Australia, but like I said, I mean that fight also it took a lot out of me.
Mhm.
I don't honestly believe that I was ever the same guy after that, and I can't say why. I just think I don't know. I've never been hurt in a fight. Never been hurt in a fight in my life. After that fight, I came home. I was sparring somebody, getting hurt and stuff. And I'm not saying it's because of that fight. I just think something left me, that love and stuff like that for the sport. It left me.
You know, Sean O'Grady came up with a brilliant analogy when it comes to when a fighter's chin starts to go. He compared it to a cash
Cash
register,
register, yeah.
and then
Can we
once
stop?
you
Can we stop for a minute? I'm so happy you said that. Listen, he was like, I got rated in the Ring magazine as the best chin in boxing. I got, yeah, the best chin. Listen, I I tell everybody we can fix the hand, we can fix the hammy, we can fix, but you can't fix your chin. There's no, yeah. When my chin just went, and all of a sudden I was never the same. I always thought I'll get back in the office. It's gonna be all right. It's gonna be all right. I'm gonna get back in that ring. No, mate. Once it's done, it's done.
Yeah. Well, the rematch was staged in Melbourne, and you were expected to right the wrong that was done to you in Las Vegas. And instead, you were stopped in round 8. What went wrong that night?
Everything, my
Everything.
preparation. I'll give you a couple examples. I don't make excuses. My trainer, the great Johnny Lewis, we had Virgil Hill fight, we had Costa Zoo fight. Here am I in the biggest fight of my life. I'm in the dressing room on my own for half the day. When I'm going to say this, when I got my first injection from my doctor,
Hmm.
who was out all night, I fought. Remember, we fought in the daytime.
Hmm.
I was so popular that everybody in my team were out every night partying. The doctor put the needle through the top of my left knuckle, through the bottom of my hand into my right knuckle. That he was still drunk at the fight, but I've never made an excuse. Zuma Nelson went back, came, beat me, and but if you're watching the fight again, I mean, he dropped me a couple of times. I was coming back. But then I just didn't have what it took anymore, and the great Zuma Nelson, wow, like I said, I nothing but admire the man. I just think that he loses fights and just comes back and he wants to avenge him, and he does.
And he does. They called him the professor for a reason, and it is kind of fitting, though, that your final official fight was the third match against Nelson, which took place 12 years after your previous bout and nearly 10 years after Nelson's. You won a majority decision. Did that take any of the sting out of what happened in the previous two bouts?
No, not a bit. I don't even count that as a fight. I
Okay.
don't. Yeah, if I just that was an exhibition. That was no fight, And yeah, I mean, today, yeah, we went at it, but I was 44. He was, like I said, 49. Or that. That's no fight to me.
Yeah, and I considered it an exhibition. I'm heading to the Hall of Fame to host it next week. You were, of course, inducted, I think, in 2002, I believe.
2002.
Yeah, and what do you remember about the phone call from Ed Brophy and the experience of actually being inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame? What did that mean to Jeff Fenech?
Wow, it meant everything. Listen, I don't say my belt's Samoa world champion. It's the recognition I get from Roberto when Hagler was around. They love to watch me fight. That's when you've made it. Belts don't represent anything. You can pay for a couple of fights there, you can fight for a world title. And it's about longevity. It's how long I was world champion. I defended my bantamweight title 3 times, my super bantamweight title 3 times, my featherweight title 3 times. Like I said, that's and then I get a call in my first year to be inducted. I was chosen. So
Yeah.
like I said, I mean, it's like I've had the red carpet rolled out. I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I'd like you both maybe to sit down and think: has there ever been a boxer in history that done what I've done so quick with broken hands? Just sit down and think of it. And like I had 30 odd professional fights, had 28 amateur fights. I went to the Olympics, so world champion in my sevens. Like I said, defender. So me, I'm this guy that I don't care what anybody says. I know what I done, and I don't think anybody else. I don't think there's not too
It
many
was a
people
it was a
that could have
meteoric
done it.
it was a meteoric rise against all the odds, and you did it with a lot of courage. I asked you when we did our show together, how do you want to be remembered as a fighter and more importantly as a man. But that was some years ago, and there's been a lot of changes with Jeff Fenech. A lot has happened in your life. So we'll get you out of here with that same question today, one day removed from your 61st birthday. How does Jeff Fenech want to be remembered as a fighter? And more importantly, how does Jeff Fenech want to be remembered as a man?
As a fighter, I just want to be remembered as somebody that, yeah, let his fist do the talking. And as a man, I want people to realise that I'm no bigger, I'm no better than anybody else, and without the people, Jeff Fenech wouldn't be Jeff Fenech. So I just want to let people know that, like, watch my fight, and you can make your own decision. You can say I was good or bad. That doesn't bother me. But as a human, I hope that people realise that the rest of the days I'm going to be here, Smitty, I'm going to be helping and giving back to the people who looked after Jeff Fenech.
Yeah. Well, it's always been a pleasure for me to hang out with you. Unfortunately, we don't get to do it enough. I'm really hoping. I'm working on some speaking tours around the country and around the world. So I'm hoping I land at some point in your neck of the woods there in Australia, and we get to hang out. And certainly we want to get you back to Canastota sometime soon.
Definitely. It won't be long. Smitty, just one more thing. You want to land here. Bud Crawford landed here 5 days ago. Bud's out here in Australia at the moment doing a bit of a speaking engagement. So, yeah, Bud Crawford's here.
Yeah, he's my pound for pound best for the last 6 or 7 years. Hey, and since you mentioned him, he's got a big test with Canelo coming up in September. I know it's a ways out, but what do you think about that fight? Bud versus, or is he too small?
No, I think he's got everything to take to win the fight. I think he'll be one of the great upsets. But he's been yours for 6 years. And I love him. I think that he's right up there. But I love the monster in a way. When he won his first world title against the boy that I trained from Mexico, I said that this kid's going to be great. No, he's getting better and better every fight.
You mean me, Smitty the Monster. Listen, it's always great to see you. We said some prayers when you were going through your battles. Hopefully you're on the other side of that for a while. And it's always great to catch up with the great, Aussie's best, Jeff Fenech. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you guys very much. Thank you, Lee.
Thank you.
I got two options. Option one, I can accept defeat. Option two, I can get up. I can get tougher. I can get faster. I can get stronger. And then I go get mine. I made my choice. Have you made yours?
Well, Booth has somehow weathered the storm here in round number 6. Thus far, thought Freeman would come out a little busier, but he's patient. We have 12 rounds. Big crowd here tonight at the Charlotte County Memorial Auditorium, and they're seeing some good boxing. Right hand, that hurts. Roosevelt Booth ready to go. Barr comes in. Big right hand, uppercut. Another right hand. He's out on his feet. Max Parker comes in, and he'll give him the standing 8 count, but he might need a standing 80 count. Shaking his head. I'll be surprised, but I've said that before. It's over. It's over. In round number 6, Freeman Barr retains his IBC America's middleweight title, stopping Roosevelt Booth here in round number 6. Roosevelt Booth down will be attended immediately by the ringside physicians, and Freeman Barr moves his record to 13-1. And now 7 KOs. Steve Canton, SJC Boxing president, hugging Freeman. Freeman being exhorted in the crowd as they attend to Roosevelt Booth, whose record falls to 12-7-1.
a game youngster out of Bradenton, but outclassed here tonight, quite honestly, by Freeman Barr.
Back in this corner, the podcast, $160, memories and moments, and boy, that voice there calling that fight sounds familiar, Lee.
Very, very familiar. And in fact, what you just watched was the final moments of the main event of the very first boxing show that was streamed live on the internet. It was between Freeman Barr and Roosevelt Booth in Punta Gorda, Florida. And if you haven't already recognized who was doing the blow-by-blow, it was James Smitty Smith. First of all, Smitty, how did this broadcast come about?
You know, I remember, and I was actually the family, my wife then Kim and David Ryan and Megan, my kids, we were getting packed kind of and ready to move to Las Vegas in 97. And then all of a sudden, Steve Canton had come up to me and he said there was a gentleman, Peter Bartolotta, that is involved in the internet, this new thing, the World Wide Web and all of that. And I knew something about that, but he said that Peter was going to stream this fight card from Punta Gorda. And I love to be a part of history. And what I remember most is the maze of wires that I was locked up in, sitting on this table away, separate from the ring there in Punta Gorda. Bob Alexander was doing the ring announcing. I was doing the call by myself. I know that your buddy Hank Kaplan, your young Hank Kaplan was there. Yeah. And Kid Gavilan was there, and I think I interviewed both of them during the card itself. I know we ended up with about 250 to 300,000 people were able to log on. It was very choppy and very rough. But what I really remember was just not being able to move because of all the wires and everything. But when you think about what the internet has become, I'm really proud that I was a part of that.
Given all the technical difficulties that you experienced that night, did you ever think that the World Wide Web would drive terrestrial television away from boxing, and now everything is pretty much streamed?
No, I really didn't. You know, when I got to Vegas, it was like 7 years after that, I launched my television show In This Corner. And even then, I still felt that TV was the way to go. The producer, John Hyatt of In This Corner, he always thought the internet was the wave of the future. He saw that coming before I did. But being wrapped up in those wires and all of that, hey, I was the first one to do it, and ended up being a lot of fun. And the rest, as they say, is history. Speaking of history, we have more history with the guy who certainly knows it, Lee Groves, the top 5 Aussie fighters of all time, when we come back. Back, final segment in this corner of the podcast, $160. Time to talk about your favorite, Dr. Nam.
Fun.
Yes, he specializes, his expertise is in full mouth cosmetic veneers, crowns, dental implants. He does extractions with sedation, and believe me, look at that picture. You can see that he knows how to sedate you. That's for sure. When we do these commercials, I say that implants are something that, especially when you get around our age, it's the way to go. I mean, a lot of the times your bridges have broken down, and other things have gone wrong with your teeth and whatever you got going on, and really implants is the way to go, probably at any age, but certainly as you get older. It's just that it takes a certain kind of expert, and that is Dr. Nam Phan. He has locations in Las Vegas, in New York, also in New Jersey. But I just like to give out this number, 702 637 9168. 702 637 9168. He has flexible financial options for you. If he can't help you put a price together and a game plan, a financial plan to pay for any of his dental work, nobody else can. He really is good about that. Again, he is a dental implant expert. He is Dr. Nam Phan. So, final part we're going to do here is top Aussie fighters, the top 5. Take it away, Lee.
We know, first of all, this will be a list of the best Australia-born boxers. So several names that have been featured on other lists of greatest Australian fighters will not be on there. One of them is Kostya Tszyu, who was based in Australia but was born in Russia. Another is Vic Darchinyan, who was born in Armenia. Lester Ellis was born in England. And another is Johnny Famechon, who was born in France. So with that in mind, here's the top 5. And number 5 is Jimmy Carruthers. This native of Sydney was an aggressive but skilled southpaw who made his biggest mark by the way he became world bantamweight champion in 1952. He traveled to South Africa to challenge Vic Toviel, who was 26-0-1 at the time and was considered a heavy favorite to win the fight. But at the opening bell, Carruthers ambushed Toviel, knocked him out of the ring with a series of blistering power shots, and scored the 10-count knockout moments later with another volley. Moreover, Carruthers returned to South Africa to fight Toviel again, and this time he stopped him in round 10. He went on to win 3 more fights, including a 12-round decision in Thailand over Chamron Songkatrat in Thailand that took place in a driving rainstorm so intense that both men competed barefoot. Illness forced Carruthers to retire as an undefeated world champion at 24, but he did return 7 years later and finished his career 2-4. But during his prime, he was as good as it got. Number 4 is young Griffo. Griffo competed from 1886 to 1904 and was part of the transition from the London prize ring rules to the Marquis of Queensberry rules that are in place today. To get an idea of what kind of fighter he was, his nickname was the Australian Will-o'-the-Wisp. Think Willie Pep and Nicolino Loche. Great defensive fighters, but were also very flashy. He won a version of the world featherweight title by stopping Torpedo Billy Murphy in the 15th round, but he never achieved full recognition as world champion. He fought 3 draws with George Dixon, but had official decisions been allowed in those fights, he might have won all 3 fights. So that speaks very well of him. He lost a controversial decision to Jack McAuliffe, who ended his career undefeated, in which he was barely touched in 10 rounds. However, as great as he would have been even greater had he trained seriously and had he not been a severe alcoholic. And if legend is to be believed, he often competed when drunk or hungover, but he was still sharp enough to beat quality fighters. According to BoxRec, he fought 229 times and lost only 11, and he was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1991. We move on to number 3, and that is Lionel Rose. He is the first Australian Aborigine to win a widely recognized world championship. And by beating future Hall of Famer Fighting Harada in Harada's native Japan, he did so at the tender age of 19. During his time as champion, he made 3 successful defenses against Takao Sakurai, Chucho Castillo, and Alan Rudkin, while also defeating veteran Jose Medel in a non-title fight before losing the championship to the legendary Ruben Olivares. Rose was a consummate technical boxer, and he had sneaky power. He ended his career with a record of 42-11 with 12 knockouts. The second fighter on my list was Les Darcy, and Darcy is a case of what might have been, as he ended up dying of pneumonia at just age 21. You could say that he was the Australian Salvador Sanchez. However, his achievements during his short life still merits inclusion on this list. He was a native of Stradbroke Island in Queensland, And he defeated some of his era's greatest fighters, such as George Chipp, Jeff Smith, Ed McGurty, and Jimmy Clabby. He held the Australian version of the world middleweight title, and he defended that 8 times, the last of which was a ninth-round knockout over Chipp, the former middleweight champion of the world. At the time of his death, Darcy was about to start a campaign in the U.S. that included a possible fight with Harry Greb, but it was not to be. Darcy ended his career with a record of 46-4 with 29 knockouts, and he was part of the International Boxing Hall of Fame's class of 1993. And then, of course, number one, and you should already have guessed who number one should be, and that was our guest, Jeff Fenech. He won widely recognized world titles at bantamweight, super bantamweight, and featherweight. He had victories over Hall of Famers Azuma Nelson, Carlos Zarate, and Daniel Zaragoza. And the fact that he won a world title just 196 days after turning pro, and that he defeated 8 men who won world titles, that really speaks well of his accomplishments. And then on top of all that, he was a volume puncher who scored 21 knockouts in 33 fights despite having defective, injury-prone hands. For this reason, he must rank as one of the toughest boxers to ever live. And on top of his toughness, there was genuine greatness. He ended his career with a record of 29-3-1, and he was inducted into the Hall of Fame, and deservedly so. So that's my list of the top 5 Australians.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
But here's another thing, though. There were some guys that just missed the list. They included Jeff Harding, Dave Sands, Anthony Mundine, Barry Michael, and Daniel Geale. And there's a guy right now in Jayo Bataya, the current IBF Cruiserweight champion. He may well end up being on this list once his career is finished. But as for now, this is my top 5.
Yeah, and for people that, again, are yelling and screaming about the Kosh Jesus and some of the others, these are gentlemen that were born down under. So, and on that note, I guess we'll go back to Jeff Fenech on my television show In This Corner and talking about. We'll close it out with him talking about his legacy in Australia. Here's Jeff Fenech. So long, everybody.
Because there's a lot of great Australian athletes and team sports and things like that. But how big of a star were you? I mean, a national hero, right?
One of the great things, or one of my great legacies, is I'll never ever leave anywhere without signing the last autograph, because without the fans I wouldn't have a dollar. So I know that if I wasn't popular with the fans and support me, I'd be nobody. So the fans mean everything to me. But when I fought Nelson, I know I was still jumping the gun, but when I fought Nelson in Princes Park, there was over 40,000 people in the pouring rain. I mean, I don't mean rain, I mean bucket loads. So I was quite popular. And I look back then, I won every Australian sporting award for year after year after year, 86, 87, 88, 89, best Australian sporting person, best male athlete. So I was on a good run, everything was great.